And then, as mentioned earlier, in the South African team, Adrian Richter, a big job on his shoulders, but also for the two line-out men, Visser and Otto, and Russo throwing in the line-out. Romania will concentrate greatly on the two men in the middle, Koshakariu and Churascu, the two lock forwards, to bring them some sort of possession, because the rest might be scant. But they will play for the love of their nation today, and they're a very, very proud nation. Replacements today then, Andre Joubert, one of the heroes for South Africa last Thursday, and on the Romanian side, well, they do have some injuries in the camp, including the captain, and some of them on the bench as well. Well, welcome back then to Newlands, and Ken McCartney from Scotland will be looking after this game. He's the referee today, and with him, Jim Fleming of Scotland and Felisa Vito from Western Samoa will be in charge of this particular match. South Africa are playing into the southeaster breeze, and the match will be started by Ivanciuc, the fly half of Romania.
Gavin, as you were saying there, the Romanians are a very proud rugby nation. They've come here fielding a relatively young side. They've chosen to go the youth first route in their furthering rugby back in Romania. And this afternoon they're fielding a number of students. 4 of them, in fact, are physical education students. So who knows, they'll be fighting for the warm-up procedure amongst them.
Well, they've been known to be a very physical side. Ivanciuc into the sun, choosing to go to his left. Richter is the catcher. Well, a penalty going immediately against South Africa from Ken McCartney. Catcher was Adrian Richter, and the players came in from an offside position.
Well, I think they were in fact just indicating that there were a few blockers acting in the path of Adrian Richter. Just look how they spread around him. Gary Pagel's there. And quite rightly, you're not allowed to do that according to the rugby laws.
Well, early opportunity then for Ivanciuc, in playing his 3rd match for his country today, and just a solitary penalty goal behind his name for his country. Some big men in the Romanian side. Lots of concentration from Ivanciuc as he struck this well enough. Is that going to swing wide? It has swung wide. Well, that's the difficulty with the wind, because that kick virtually started on the right-hand upright and then swung away. South Africa with the advantage of knowing this wind a little better than, well, certainly a lot better than their opponents. Leroux with a restart. Well taken. That was well cleared, that, by Romania. Ivanciuc looking towards the blind side. A very good kick from him. Big role for Brinza at the back, number 8 for Romania. He's gone into this match with, well, he's had an injury leading up until today, and it was a late decision that he would in fact play in this match. He has an injured shoulder. Can Rousseau get some accuracy, which has been lacking before? That's Visser in the front. That's Johan Roux' kick from within his 22.
Kobus Visser stamping his mark of authority quite early in the game. He has always proved to be a very, very reliable front row jumper. And in fact, most people were quite surprised at his omission from the Springbok team last Thursday. Super way to start the lineouts.
He's He's always been a very explosive jumper in the front. That's Nigresh with a throw-in. And then it's Queno Otto who takes it away from them. Well, that's a really good start, that, for South Africa. Roos hoist. Coming in from the back and beautifully taken by Brechi. That's good driving by Romania. They did well to take the catch and then get some momentum going with that rolling maul. Ivanciuc just peppering South Africa and pushing them back. Bearing in mind he's got the wind behind him. That was Gavin Johnson, South Africa's record holder in terms of individual points scored in a match. 28 against Western Samoa. Maru's kick just drifting back a little bit. Romania unable to take. Looking for the physical encounter there on that occasion was Delapu. He's the man who is penalised for holding on to that ball when he went down. He didn't get close enough support from the rest of his Romanian pack. Kenny LaRue taking the kick to touch, and that's interesting because one would have expected Gavin Johnson to do it, but good to see the fly-off getting himself involved early.
Quite clearly South Africa will need to settle down a little bit. They've been starved of possession, and here we see that penalty that was earlier awarded to South Africa. Delapu just comes in and goes over the top of that ball.
South Africa unable to control that ball. Romania using their options well there and spreading the ball down the line. Johnson keeping it in field. There's not a knock-on from Brechi, went backwards. Well, they'll sense a little bit more urgency in the Romanian team than what we saw against Canada last week, where they seemed to be very lethargic and lacking somewhat in creativity and willingness to run.
And in contrast, South Africa just seemed to be taking it a little easier, settling into what should be a very, very complete game plan against the Romanians. And as Gavin Johnson took that kick from deep inside his own half, James Small was well positioned and is 22 for a touch kick. So maybe they need to play together a little bit.
Well, there's certainly no need to motivate the South African team. There are many players today playing for positions in the so-called green team. This is the gold team being led by Adrian Richter. Brendan Fenter trying to find space. Well tackled by Ivanciuc. Running into the wind is a lot easier for South Africa. Now this is Johnson on the switch there to Hendricks. Good pickup from Brink in his first match for South Africa on his home territory. Well, back they'll come for a penalty, and this might well be kickable for Gavin Johnson.
Well, play with a lot more purpose coming from South Africa there. They look to move the ball wide. And certainly, as we mentioned earlier, perhaps we're going to see more work from James Small and Peter Hendricks. Both fine wingers with very, very strong running ability.
South Africa would want to concentrate on getting their game plan in motion, settling the game, but there must be some real desires to run the ball with a strong wind into them. Certainly when they get into the Romanian half of the field.
Well, Gavin, as you mentioned, there are a lot of these players playing for positions in the green side. And I think the good thing about today's makeup in the Springbok lineup is that 11 of those players have yet to play in the World Cup. And it'll almost be like a new lookalike Springbok side, which shouldn't bring in too much of the overconfidence.
Lovely camera angle from our cameras, and he struck that well as Johnson. It's got the legs.
Well, Johan Roux applauds his goal kicker from this side of the touchline and into the wind. That's an outstanding kick from Gavin Johnson. Should do well to settle him for further attempts.
Always a very accurate kicker, and today's not going to. It's going to be a real test of kicking skills, one feels. Rue unable to take that ball as it goes through his legs. South Africa have the advantage of the put-in, so they'll come back. South Africa a fair bit heavier than Romania. Romania known for their strong skills in the line-out and physical encounters in the scrums. That's a good kick that for James Small. The bounce is not that unkind to him. Excellent tactical kicker is Johan Rue.
Well, that certainly is a strength of his game. We saw in the match against England last year, Johan Rue with those peppering high kicks really was outstanding.
Negrechi's got Churashku in the front and Koshikariu just behind him in the front to Churashku. Lots of experience from the two line-out men for Romania. They've got over 60 caps between them. Well, that was good defensive pressure from South Africa, and that's what they showed so well in that opening encounter. In terms of pressuring their opponents, good quick tackling.
The referee's brought the line out all the way back to the 22 and has ruled that Rashanu was in fact outside of his 22. So we're going to see the South Africans putting the ball in just on the Romanian 22.
Henny LaRue switch back there to Robbie Brink. Robbie Brink is big and strong, and so is Ruben Kruger. This is a chance for South Africa. There's a long pass to the outside. James Small is across. An outstanding move. Can they get over the line? Kobus Visser, as usual, is in the middle of that maul, now turned ruck. Well, what a great start for Robbie Brink. And in tandem with his fellow flanker, just saw that move right up to the Romanian try line. What do we have in store now? Will it be a big shot from South Africa? In goes Johan Rue to lend a little bit of support. And Hendricks to take the scrum half berth. Will it be needed? South Africa have scored. Well, we're waiting to see who the try will be credited to, and it certainly looks like Marius Herter or Adrian Richter has scored that try.
What a fine try for South Africa. They started by some super intermingling play between the loose trio there. Robbie Brink involved and Ruben Kruger. We've already seen action from him. Let's have a look at that scrum there. Very solid scrum. South Africa have proved themselves to be a very, very strong scrummaging nation in the past, and Peter Hendricks prepares himself, and Adrian Richter just makes the last effort.
His role today is not just a try scorer, but it's manning the post of captaincy and marshalling those troops of South Africa. Johan Rue has taken an awful knock on his nose, but he's a tough man. He'll be back.
Well, he might be saying to himself, Gavin, that's the last time I get involved in a scrum.
Johnson's angle is a little bit more acute on this occasion. Well, 8 points to 0. South Africa lead, then 11 minutes of play gone. Ivanciuc with the restart. It's a lovely drop out from him. Kreno Otto is the man going up, but he's knocked on. Will there be advantage for Romania? Rashanu can't take that, and they'll come back for the scrum. Ken McCartney in a broad Scottish accent, just giving a little warning to the players that the whistle is gone, and back you come, please. I'm in control. Strong French influence on Romanian rugby, and that is manifested in their desire to move the ball around. Well, that was good pressure from South Africa. Knock on coming from Romania. Rue once again finding some space for James Small. Well taken by Brecci. He's a tall man, is Brecci. Well, the men from the Balkans have certainly not stood back in this game, in these opening encounters. They've been prepared to take South Africa on. The numbers are shouted by Johan Rue. That'll indicate where that ball's going to. Visser in the front, then Kreno Otto, that's above him, but Richter takes well. Romanians going over the top of there and preventing the ball coming out on South Africa's side, because Richter had done well. He turned himself to face his post, and over the top went Vlad from Romania.
Well, that was indeed a fine take by Richter at the back of the line-out. So often the back of the line-out jumper tends to feel that the number 4 jumper has taken the ball and looks to the attack, and he was wide awake to catch that one as it came over Kreno Otto's head. We see Richter goes to ground, and the referee indicates that it was the number 3.
Well, that's a great chance for South Africa. This is Peter Hendricks. South Africa took a short line out. They made a bit of a hash of it, but Rue cleaned up well. Good work there by Ruben Kruger. Now Henny LaRue, little chip kick through. He's going to try and take it himself, but there's a knock-on from South Africa. South African fly-up, not too sure whether that option was the correct one for him, but in the heat of the moment, the decision is taken quickly. Flutur, back it goes to the fullback Brecci. Casey Pienaar in the middle, and Kitch Christie and Morne du Plessis on either sides. The brains trust of the South African team. Chris Rousseau found his men in this match. That's Cobus Visser. Good jump by him. Can South Africa get this ball turning, or otherwise get a quick release to the backs? There's men up plenty in the background. Johnson coming down the middle. Well, this is good ball for South Africa, but they were not properly regrouped as Otto goes wide and then comes back again. Once again, a flurry of players. This is Brink again. Ruben Kruger right on his tail. Well, obstruction from South Africa. They'll be disappointed by the fact that Ruben Kruger and Robbie Brink got a little bit mixed up there.
Well, sadly for South Africa, they're not converting an attacking opportunity into points. And it's nice to see Robbie Brink settling into a very, very fine game so far. One player that just seems to make the ball available before contact, and we've seen him throw out 2 or 3 vital passes. And that's where the referee indicates that there was a little bit of obstruction from the South Africans, and awards the penalty to Romania.
The magic spray comes out, and that's the scrum half Flutur. Well, important for Romania's cause that he stays on his feet, taking the place of Niago, who played in the first match against Canada.
That clearance not possibly making full use of the wind. It is a strong wind downfield, and I'm sure that South Africa will relish the opportunity in the second half to make full use of it.
Well, throwing in the lineouts is not that easy either. That's Robbie Brink. Negretti looking for Chirashku in the front. He finds him. It was a better punt that from Ivanciuc.
Expecting from the Argentinian scrum.
Well, the distance that they're not able to find, Tony, is probably largely got to do with the good and quick defensive work of South Africa. South Africa has the territorial and possession advantages, which was to be expected. 8 points nil, and important for their cause that they're actually playing well. At the back, it's Brink and Richter that jump, and coming out cleanly to South Africa. That's Hendricks on the far side. He's keen to take his man on and then just stop short of him. Well, that was a good tackle that on Queno Otto. Richter back on his feet again. Good ball for Ivanciuc, looking to take South Africa on. There's a very strong South African midfield presence. Chip kick from Richter. Johnson's made sure that he's back far enough in case the ball travels some distance with that wind, and that's a lovely reply from the fullback.
Gavin Johnson certainly striking the ball sweetly today. He hit that one with an enormous amount of interest, way deep into Romanian territory, into the wind and all.
Well, 5 tries in 5 internationals also says a lot for the fullback. That's not a bad strike rate either. That's big Cobus Visser, sporting a little beard. Gretsch once again going for Churashku in the front. Barging against the Romanians in the front by South Africa.
That man, Cobus Visser, in picture was the culprit, according to the referee.
This is Gretsch. The advantage of having the strong left foot.
Well, let's see if we can pick Cobus Visser up, and he does just step across the line and, well, nudges his opposite man, Churashku.
The benefit of the throw-in goes the way of Romania, of course, from the resultant line out from the penalty. Strike rate for South Africa much improved from last week, but this time it's Romania's ball, looking to play it wide. This is good running by Brecci from the fullback position. He's really looked a very useful player, Tony.
Yes, he certainly has, and as we saw those line-out statistics there, Gavin, if my memory serves me correct, this time on Thursday, South Africa had a strike rate of almost 30% as opposed to 88% this afternoon. So there's been a big turnaround, and they're playing against some very good jumpers in Romanian locks.
Just the 4 South Africans in, but that's good enough for them. Visser securing possession in the front. South Africa looking to run it from their goal line. This is dangerous. James Small looking for recovery and finds it.
Well, those games of experience that James Small has racked up certainly showing there, and he may just need to settle things a little bit. They've got time on their hands, settle into a pattern.
South Africa would want some sort of percentage statistics in terms of the way that they're going to approach this match. There are bigger ones coming their way. Gretsch to the back, taken on by Blood. Richter. This is a huge punt from Ivanciuc. Johnson's first real test is very well taken by him. James Small is in there to help him. Can South Africa make the recovery they want? They're inside their goal area. Well, that was really good play by them, and good recovery from Johanni. Well composed was the South African pack, and Johnson did well to secure the possession.
Well, Johnson, in taking that high up and under, must thank his teammate Henny Leroux, who's quick in for the rip. And that subsequently set up the platform for Johan Roux to clear.
Eight points to 0, then 18 minutes left, 17 in fact. She's had a lot of throwing in the line out in this game, in the minutes that we've had in this first half. Well, accidental offsides there against the fly half Ivanciuc.
Well, Gavin, that little kick by Flutter, he does indicate that he enjoys soccer, and he used his foot as a pass instead of the customary scrum half pass.
Well, a lot of their players are football fans, which is perfectly understandable for teams coming from mainland Europe. Some of the many supporters turning out today to support their local team, South Africa. Who's done a lot more throwing in than Chris Rousseau has in this match. Roux comes away well, gets his hands through the tackle, and then no scrum off. But Henny Leroux had sensed that and then came up to get himself into the right position. It's an awful kick that from Brecci. Brink can't take properly. Richter goes back inside. South Africa would want to regroup here. The Romanians are seemingly playing the ball on the ground, but it's gone the other way. Well, the referee has decided the penalty will go South Africa's way. There were too many Romanians off their feet playing that ball.
Well, the quick one's nominated by Johan Roux as he darts through a gap there.
Well, that's Peter Hendricks looking to try and push off Colcheriu, who's against him today and has his work cut out. Well, there's been an awful amount of penalties in this match, Tony, and once again with South Africa, they're not keeping the or not playing the ball off their feet.
Well, indeed, you said earlier that Adrian Richter had to fill some big shoes in Francois Pienaar, but he'll be looking to discipline his players a little bit more. They put in a very disciplined performance on Thursday, conceding very few penalties by comparison to the most recent test matches. And that'll be going through the mind of the players now.
Well, young Brecci, that was a good kick from him, right up against the touchline. The pressure has been coming from South Africa, is evident from those statistics, with the fly half of Romania having to kick on more occasions than South Africa, and that's because the defense is getting up really quickly onto the fly half from the Balkans. South Africa come away with it. Kruger, Brink can't pick up. Wasn't a particularly good pass from Kruger.
Well, Kobus Visser there just showing how vital he is to South Africa's drive. He's probably the best driver amongst the tight five, and very, very strong once he gets going.
Game's struggling to come to life. Once again, a big kick from Brecci. .14 minutes left in this half. The try from Adrian Richter and that super penalty goal from Gavin Johnson is the difference. Chris Rousseau has some choices. Richter's taken well at the back, and that's Krano Otto's tap. This is good ball for South Africa. Leroux's hoist. It didn't exactly go, I think, where Henny Leroux wanted it to be. It was an up and under, but it drifted across beautifully, and important ground one for South Africa. The left-hand corners are always good probing ground for any team. Well, out of picture, flanker Jalapu has gone down quite heavily. Game will continue. That's Ruben Kruger coming out, sensing that his marker is not in the line out. That's a good jump from Gurănescu. And then that big left boot of Brecci again. He's really been called into action quite a bit because of so much of the play being on that side of the field and them using him with that strong left foot of his.
Well, Jalapu's up on his feet, making his way back to the line-out, and as you said earlier, the game's struggling to really get going. We have a great deal of excited fans here at Newlands today. They're just hoping that their side, South Africa, can put together a string of tries.
Chris Rousseau, good work with Visser. It was the tap down, and running off the ball beautifully is Christian Scholz. He's such a lovely runner, straight runner with the ball. South Africa a little bit disorganized there, but Chris Rousseau recovers well. Now a quick release is what South Africa want, but it goes the way of Romania from an offside position. That's the big man Gurănescu, who came in from the side of that ruck. Now the big choice is charge or kick.
Well, here we see Gurănescu. He's almost acting like scrum half for South Africa, and yet he's wearing the yellow jersey. The referee just picks up that there's a penalty.
Johan Roux has told his forwards to go back a bit further. There's going to be a huge belt at the line from them. Can they get over? Well, that was disappointing, but they didn't have a lot of room to move in. They were right up against the touchline.
Well, South Africa have already shown that they're a scrummaging side. They've pushed the Romanians around the park today, and perhaps a 5-meter scrum may be the right option in the end.
Well, will they look for momentum from the scrum or the release to Leroux? He's got power and pace in the back line. There's a misunderstanding, but he does well to recovers well to get across the advantage line. This is Robbie Brink. He's been really evident in these early exchanges. Visser. 2-3 thrust. South Africa needs somebody running off the ball at pace. That's it inside there. Little dummy from Brendan Venter, but Romania were offsides and there'll be a penalty under the posts. Tony, one feels that South Africa really must regroup themselves, but this is an interesting situation. Chris Rousseau can't take the kick. Well, the Romanians unsuspectingly thought that South Africa were going to in fact kick for goal. Chris Rousseau had cleverly moved towards the touchline. The cross kick that came, he couldn't take it, and Romania very quick to counter with their quick throw in at the line out, and this is the recovery that they've got.
Yes, indeed, Gavin, but one of the pointers I think for South Africa right now is that there's a little bit of a lack of communication. We've seen Henny Leroux go for a move and have no support. Brendan Venter again was caught in a situation where he didn't know where he was, and with that final kick attempting a penalty, well, perhaps South Africa need to, as you say, tighten it up, stick to the basics, and let the tries come for themselves.
Well, that's big Leonte with his 53 caps under his belt, and out of picture, Brendan Venter has left the field with a little bit of blood on his neck. Of course, a requirement that he does leave the field. And Joel Stransky has been summoned off the stand. It's possibly the last thing that Joel Stransky wants to do right now is go onto the field in the center position, but if he needs to go on, one feels fairly sure that Henny Leroux would move to center and Stransky to fly half. But that remains to be seen. Nine minutes left. South Africa lead 8 points to 0. So looking for Visser. Well, that's Joel Stransky with a number 17 on his back.
Gavin, as Joel Stransky prepares to make his way onto the field, one just hopes that he is sufficiently stretched and warmed up. We know that in the past he's had the odd problem with hamstring injuries, and one would hate to see a player of his caliber, with South Africa's fortunes that still lie ahead, risking any injury.
Pick up by Richter, and the little reverse pass doesn't find its man. Well, that's Stransky onto the field. Then he'll just have a word with the referee and we'll see where he positions himself. Well, he's going into the centre berth, and I cannot understand why he's gone there. He's such an important factor for South Africa, and being pushed into the midfield doesn't seem to be logical.
Well, Gavin, as you ask the same question that I'm asking, I think possibly what he might be doing is using a few moments to get a bit of running done around the park, get himself warmed up. We may well see him slot in just ahead of Henny le Roux.
There would certainly be logic in that. South Africa will be a little concerned that they're not able to get across this Romanian goal line. They've spent a fair bit of time in the 22 without converting it into points. Over the back, and neither Otto nor Brink were able to take. Romanians getting themselves into all sorts of trouble. Kruger decides to take the short route. That was good play by him to set up the next phase of movement. Now can South Africa stretch it quickly enough? It was not good passing by them, and then Johnson can't take that pass either. Counter-attack coming from the Romanian team in the form of Solomillier.
Well, South Africa making all sorts of unforced errors in their back line, and perhaps they do well to just play with their loose forwards acting as auxiliaries off Henny le Roux, tighten up, suck in the Romanian opposition, and then use their strong wings in James Small and Peter Hendricks.
Those statistics bear out what Tony Watson has just said, and South Africa have been losing possession that they don't wish to lose, and the wind might well be a factor, but there needs to be greater concentration and more close-in support. Once again, a great jump from Visser. That's Johan Roux's punt, but it's gone a little too short. Good regrouping from the Romanians. They've done well in the lineouts in this game, and when they've needed to regroup, despite the pressure that's been on them, they've actually done it rather well. Big kick downfield. Johnson has time at his disposal.
Well, that to me seems a far better option shown by the Romanians. They kick the ball deep, opt for a 22 dropout. The wind is certainly a big factor, and it'll just keep them in the South African half of the field.
Henny le Roux. Well taken by the Romanians. They've done well from the catches, and in terms of catching that ball from the kick-ins. Not that there's been that many of them, but they've been secure. But it comes out South Africa's way.
Well, a big booming kick comes from the right wing there, Colcheru. And what an outstanding kick that was. Peter Hendricks not able to retain the ball. And we're going to see the South Africans throwing the ball in deep in their own territory.
Joel Stransky after a brief period on the field, and Brendan Venter is back on the field. He would have known the extent of his damage on leaving it. He's a medical doctor by profession. Well, we heard the words mouthed there. It's cold out there, and that's because of the southeaster wind that's blowing. The one good thing about the southeaster down here at Newlands is it blows the rain away. So looking for Otto and finding him. Once again, a big kick from le Roux. Chasing up was Christian Scholz. Can South Africa make something of this? Venter Venter is quickly turned by the Romanians. That was good play by them. They took that away from South Africa. This is Leon Solimier, then Negreș and Solimier again. Good play by the Romanians. Coming through there was Gurănescu. Now they've got men aplenty on the outside, and going in is Churashku. Just can't find the options of getting through there. And then that was Rashanu, unable to take the pass.
Well, just showing that those handling errors are contagious in the centre, as we saw that move start with Brendan Fenton knocking on a little pass there and ending in the same way, with the Romanian centre dropping an equally easy pass.
Rue, that's to Johnson. He didn't seem to be that well positioned at Gavin Johnson, but such are his skills that he was able to get some distance with a kick. I think he got caught a little bit by surprise. "39 minutes of ordinary playing time gone." In the background there, the touch judge Felicia Vita from Western Samoa. Churashku, as he's been a dominant figure in the Romanian lineouts in this match. That's the long kick, that from Rashanu. Beautiful positioning from Johnson. That's not a bad punt into the wind. Back foot is Brecci. He, of course, will also have to run. Bit of aerial ping-pong from both teams. This is James Small. LaRue. Long pass on the outside to Peter Hendricks. South Africa playing dangerously in their own 22. This is Johan Rue. Well, not too much progress made by South Africa from there. LaRue takes the scrum half position, and James Small, the fly half one.
James Small was the man that initiated that counter-attack, and certainly South Africa had men back in support. But when you look to throw those long passes, you've got to be committed to running straight. And I think South Africa at the moment look to be drifting. They're not running straight at their man. There's no one straightening up the back line outside of the centres. And that's part of the problem so far.
The Romanian team obviously well geared towards defence, in expectation of not getting the quality ball that South Africa are getting. Ball bobbing around in the line out. Once again, Romania getting their fair share of the ball from those phases of play. Ivanciuc's hoist. That was well taken, that by Marius Herter. Henny LaRue. There's lots of space just behind the back line, and then Brecci, who's well positioned. Little chip kick coming from him. This could be a good contest with Visser. Visser gets past one and two and keeps it alive. It was well played by him. Henny LaRue with some lovely running off the ball, but he couldn't take the pass. Back foot is Rashanu. Well, the ball seems to be popping out on the Romanian side with great regularity, and that gives Ivanciuc the options of kicking way downfield. Johnson looking for the counter. This is good running by the fullback, but he doesn't have men in support. Back foot again, Brecci. Kicking into the gap area there, but Peter Hendricks eventually positioned himself well. And that ball will drift into touch. Well, that was a very poor period of play from both teams.
Well, indeed it was, and I think the referee himself will be quite happy it ended that way. He indicated there was a penalty to the Romanians in their own half of the field, and it resulted in some pretty poor counter-attacking from South Africa.
Well, that's the half-time whistle then, with South Africa leading Romania by 8 points to 0. The solitary try from Adrian Richter and the penalty from Gavin Johnson. as we look at that field, the wind is blowing down towards us. And that wind has in fact been known to swing around, strangely enough, on occasions. But at this time of the year, well, we don't want to make too much of the fact that the wind is a factor here today, but it has impeded a lot of the progress and good passing. And South Africa and Romania both would probably want to keep their passing to as short as possible, with the players closer in, so that the ball doesn't drift all over the place.
Well, Gavin, as you mentioned the wind there, I must tell you that Joel Stransky indicated it was cold. It's terribly cold up here amongst the commentary area, and we're hoping that it'll die down, because it's not easy sitting in these chairs with the cold wind blowing through your bones. And we're hoping that the game of rugby ahead of us is going to liven things up sufficiently.
There was a lot of talk there from Irene Richter to his men at half-time, and the message is probably very, very clear to the South African team with just what is required from them in the second half. The excitement of Rugby World Cup continues. Referee Ken McCartney from Scotland on the left of picture, and Brendan Venter in attendance for Henny LaRue. That's an indication of the southeaster breeze that's blowing here at Newlands. Richter has asked for a short kick from Henny LaRue to start this match. In fact, it's not going to go his way. It goes Gavin Johnson's way. That was a good option from South Africa to immediately get them down into the Romanian half of the field, force the line out, and the line outs, particularly with Cobus Visser in the front, have been successful.
Well, absolutely, and no one knows the wind strength better than Gavin Johnson, as he was kicking into it all the first half. So the man who started it off has put South Africa deep into the attack.
South Africa has its two biggest men in the line out, the two lock forwards. The tap coming from Krano Otto. That was good recovery work by Chris Rousseau. James Small looks to open up. Back foot was Solinier, and he kicks against Peter Hendricks. Now this could be an interesting race.
Well, in fact, it was James Small who, chasing up his own little chip kick, was able to charge that one down, and unlucky not to make it to the touchline.
James Small it was, and Ritchie at the back for Romania, who had a very good first half, will have his work cut out in the second. The start coming from Ivanciuc.
That little tussle in picture of James Small and Ritchie, they've had a few words to say to each other so far this afternoon, and James Small, always a very competitive player, always looks to get the best of his opposition, and no doubt he'll have a few more words to say to him in the course of the game.
Oh, one wonders what language they're speaking to each other and how they're understanding each other, but rugby has a very clear message that's shown in the facial expressions of the players. Visser once again in the center of the driving ball. Coming away with it is Ruben Kruger. South Africa, this is good play by them. They're looking to just suck in the Romanian side. Now the opportunity to stretch it. There are lots of players out there. Scholz on the inside to Brendan Venter. Cobus Visser, who's having an absolute stormer, seems to be wherever the ball is. This is Henny LaRue, Christian Scholz coming back inside. Good play by him, and then Robbie Brink. Good momentum from South Africa in bridging the advantage line. Well, the Romanians all over the place there, offsides, playing the ball on the ground.
Well, we saw South Africa retain possession on 3 or 4 phases there, but one thing that is evident is that they're very slow to the breakdown. The man tackled, placing the ball back, has sometimes got a second or two before anyone drives off the Romanian attackers. So I think South African forwards need to regroup a little bit as we see the penalty awarded against the Romanians just for that big man, Gurănescu, going in over the top.
Christian Scholes, just prior to that, helped to straighten up the South African backline. So important for South Africa to have one man running off the ball carrier at pace and running as straight as possible. Just a short delay for attention to one of the Romanian players. And then Johnson will look to try and expand on a successful test goal kicking record up until now. Some people have important matters to contend with away from the Newlands Stadium. Nothing like killing two birds with one stone. Well, these are never nice kicks to take. Johnson, a very accurate kicker, but often up close like this with swirling winds, it's not an easy kick. You just want to keep his head down. He's done that well enough, as Johnson.
Well, a similar start in the second half as South Africa made in the first half. Johnson goaling a very good penalty. And let's hope that we can see more of the action from a more attacking back line than we did see in the first half.
Ivanciuc will restart for Romania. Jalapu running wide along with his fellow partner Gurănescu, but this is great running up from behind Rugby. Can he link up with his players? Rugby went some distance there without being touched, and then this pass goes back, but well picked up by Kruger. South Africa getting a surfeit of possession. Long pass on the outside to Small. He goes infield and well tackled by Colcheriu. Leroux, big up and under from him, but that hasn't gone far enough. That was well taken by Prinza. Back to the left foot of Brecci again, and that swings off his boot.
Well, Gavin, that very poor bit of play from the South African backline. How often this afternoon haven't we seen them throw those long passes? And you yourself said we really need to see a man straighten them up, possibly at first or second centre. And South Africa really throwing away aimless possession. The statistics show it there. 7 scrums, 18 lineouts, and yet we've only seen 1 try from the home side.
Well, domination from all phases of play was obviously mission number 1 for South Africa. That's been accomplished thus far in the game. The conversion to points has been lacking. Brinza at the back, well taken by him. In fact, it was Jalapu, aided by his captain Brinza. Little chip kick coming from Gurănescu. That was good running by Colcheriu, but he's tackled by Johnson. Well, Johnson just held back a little bit there.
Well, Colcheriu showing a very, very nifty pair of heels there. He's a man that's played 17 times for Romania and in fact has scored 16 tries, so he knows where the try line is.
The Romanians relishing the opportunity of playing today here at Newlands. They were out earlier with their cameras taking photographs of each other in the centre of Newlands on this luscious turf. The ground staff at all the stadia in South Africa have done a magnificent job in preparing the surfaces. Gurănescu with his 34th cap today, just having a word with Ken McCartney. Can speak a sprinkling of English. Man down there was the hooker Negresh. South Africa choosing to have just 4 men in the line out. The locks and the props that they were, and they've secured that well through Visser. This is a big kick there from Peter Hendricks. Back for it was Brecci, and off the ball there was a little bit of a flutter with the South African lock forwards and the two prop forwards from Romania.
Let's see if we can pick up there. Krano Otto is the man that's held up. And as the rest of his teammates make their way across the field, he's left on his own. And Kobus Wiese says, well, I'm here to lend a helping hand.
Negretchi's throwing in continues. Brins is in the middle. He can't take. Johan Roux helps to clean up. It was good play by Johan Roux. Ruben Kruger, Ian Robbie Brinker had very good first halves for South Africa. LaRue with a run around, the long pass. Johnson, can he find space? Johnson. This is Hendricks. South Africa, there's too much lateral movement amongst the backs.
Well, again, South Africa showing that they really don't have the kind of penetrative attacking ability that the backs have made. And play took place way over in the far side of the field, and in fact South Africa have gone back 10 or 15 meters. So Henny LaRue will just be saying to his forwards, perhaps we need to stick with you, and Johan Roux may well do well to kick some of those high up and unders deep into the Romanian 22.
That's the big man Ciurășcu down on the ground. He's been the hero of the Romanian lineouts. Lots of experience. Well, that's interesting, because Ken McCartney has just had a word with Adrian Richter and Krano Otto on the South African side and said the penalty is being given against you for taking a man out without the ball, and that might be a byproduct of that earlier charge from Leonte on Krano Otto. Important for the South Africans to concentrate on the ball and not the man. Ivanciuc, it's a big torpedo from him. Well, it's quite incredible how many balls Negretchi has thrown in for Romania in comparison to South Africa today. Brinz's tap down, that was well taken. Good running here by the Romanians. Can they find the close-in support? Well, that was a very shrill blast on the whistle. All the backs were offside, says Ken McCartney.
Well, a little bit of a poor bit of discipline again coming in from South Africa, and how often this afternoon haven't we seen them penalized in their own 22? This kick should be relatively easy for fly half Ivanciuc, and even though he's kicking into the wind, he only has 20 or so meters to the uprights.
Just the one opportunity in the match. This is the second. And he opened the account of the Romanians. He certainly struck it very high as Ivanciuc. That's over. $11 points to 3, then South Africa lead against Romania. And a fair bit of disappointment, one would imagine, from the South African team and supporters, that scoreline has not been greater than what it is. But there's still plenty of time, and that's Chester Williams in the middle. Unfortunately, the young man who was injured prior to the World Cup, he was chosen in the South African team and has had to sit out. Negretchi finds Ivanciuc. Johnson. That's a big punch downfield by Johnson.
Well, Johnson didn't hit that as sweet as he hit the few in the first half and the wind behind him, he possibly looked to hit it a little bit hard and didn't quite strike a torpedo. Possession this half tells a story. South Africa with 75% and yet still not able to convert it into points.
Otto's tap down to Visser. That was good clean ball for South Africa. Can they make something of this now? Christian Scholz's pass to Hendricks. Well, let's take nothing away from the Romanian defence. They've tackled well, but they've been aided to a certain extent by South Africa running across the field on many occasions and with not somebody straightening it. Down on the ground at the moment for Romania is the right wing Colceriu.
That statistic that just shows how many times Peter Hendricks has had the ball, and we see him in picture again. 7 times the ball's come to the winger, and really that tells that either the cover defense is very good or else the ball is just being spread wide across the field by the 3/4 inside him.
Maybe there are more kicking options for Henny Leroux and Johan Roux to get the forwards going towards the Romanian try line. Brecci, he's in all sorts of trouble, taken there by the South African loose forwards. This is good play by South Africa. Are they in possession? Well, that's a good try then for South Africa, and that will be credited to Adrian Richter. The ball was taken away from Brecci, the man who took the catch, and then good work by the South African loose forwards resulted in the captain's second try.
Well, Adrian Richter really has been supreme this afternoon. He's led in all facets of the game, and that was a suitably way to reward him. Just look how these South African forwards get in low, they drive. They've got their Romanians on the back foot, and who comes out with it but the blonde-headed Adrian Richter. Well, Gavin, very good placing by the referee. He was in the right position to spot that, and had he have been on the other side of that loose maul, we may well have missed that try scoring opportunity.
Johnson with his usual excellent goal-kicking record. He'll aim this at the right hand upright and swing it in beautifully through the middle. (18 points to 3), then South Africa lead, and could this be the start of a momentous thrust towards the Romanian line in these last 24 minutes of the second half? The South African team owe it to themselves and their supporters to get their game together now. Great take there by Cobus Visser. Well, the penalty will go South Africa's way because Leonte of Romania came in from the side of that maul and not from behind the feet of the last man.
And wisely, Johan Roux passes the ball to Henny Leroux and opts for the long kick, and in fact he hasn't found touch.
He finds Brecci, and Brecci's the ball screwing off his boot. Brecci has the benefit of having Solemier on the left wing, who in fact is also a fullback, so their organisation at the back should be pretty secure. Rucks and mauls have belonged to South Africa in this match, as indeed have the lineouts, and the scrums have been solid. Point scoring has been the weakness, but South Africa coming back into their own.
Well, that was Adrian Richter who was impeded from making his progress onto the ball there. Held back at the back of the lineout by Jalapu. And this should give Gavin Johnson a relatively easy attempt at goal. Just watch here. Adrian Richter looks to make an attempt, and Jalapu just holds onto the jersey. And I must say, referee McCartney has picked up those little things that normally the referee doesn't quite spot.
There's been some solid refereeing in Rugby World Cup 95. Referee Ken McCartney just adding to that illustrious list. 8 points for Johnson in this match. The 2 tries to Adrian Richter. South Africa wisely choosing the option of the goal kick. It's important that they clone any of their big games against the more inexperienced opponents, and that's through for Johnson.
Well, Johnston again just proving how valuable he is to the South African team, and were it not for the outstanding kicking ability of Joel Stransky, we may well see him playing for the green side, as you said earlier, Gavin.
Ivanciuc with his 5th restart for Romania from the middle. Good play by Chris Rousseau for South Africa. That's Johan Roos kicked down into plenty of space. Richie has James Small herring down onto him. Clever play there by Johan Roos, just to change the options that South Africa have been using and look to kick down the open touchline. South Africa might want to try on securing possession, bring Johnson into the back line. Good jump once again by Visser. That's in the front. It's Ruben Kruger, and this is Johan Roos. Good defensive work, and Robbie Brink might well have scored. Well, that ball was held off the ground, and they'll come back for the scrum.
Well, just as you were singing the praises of Johan Roos, he almost proved that indeed he's such a very, very fine player. As he makes a fine break down the right-hand touchline. Look at the pace. And as he attempts to make the goal, ball knocked from his arm. So often that happens when you're holding the ball in one hand. And unfortunate.
Credit to the Romanians for their defensive strategy in terms of going for the ball. Once again, a hold-up for injury to one of the South Africans. It looked like Chris Rousseau, and also Negretti for Romania. He's been battling along through the middle part of this match, seemingly with an injury. Well, he's important to the cause of Romania, of course, being in the middle of the scrum. That's Brinzer just having a word with Ken McCartney. Well, the message from Ken McCartney, of course, is that he needs a front row forward to come onto the field as a replacement for Negretti if he's not going to continue the game. And there seems to be a little bit of confusion in the Romanian camp at the moment.
Well, quite rightly, the referee has indicated that a front row forward is necessary on the field. And in terms of the scrumming laws, that's one law they say: you must play with 3 capable front row forwards up front.
Well, Tufu's the man. Tufu is the man that's come onto the field in place of Negretti. And he's straight into action with South Africa push them back. Well, they'll come back for a scrum now, and it's an interesting decision there from Ken McCartney.
Well, Gavin, in the World Cup tournament so far, we've seen the referees penalising the front rows for standing up. And interesting that he should penalise almost South Africa there. And in fact, it was Romania who stood up.
Well, he requires both teams, of course, to be scrumming above their hips. Those statistics show the pressure that South Africa has been able to exert without always converting it into points in their opponent's 22. Roux puts his head in. That's 9 of them in the scrum, and then he comes out. Richter back to Roux. Now, can they spread it widely enough? This is Johnson. Great running by Johnson. Then the Roux is heavily dumped by Rashanu. And South Africa penalised for playing the ball on the ground. Well, Tony, that unfortunately has happened on so many occasions where South Africa have come close, they've thrusted, and then they've given away the option.
Yes, indeed, and Henny Leroux staggers to his feet, and that was an outstanding tackle by Rachanut. Let's see if we can pick it up again. Just look at that. Seals man and ball, and Henny Leroux can do little but to hold on to it until his supporters get there.
Brecci with his left foot coming to the near touch line. Once again, not a good kick from him, but he's made sure of every single kick to touch as the young fullback. Well, a regroup now for the Romanians, with Tufa having to do the throwing in. He will be looking to get the message from his scrum half Flutur. Will it be to the front at Churashku? They were moving and closing that gap. This is good play by Johan Roux.
Well, the referee confused all the players on the field there. He indicated with his right arm that it was South Africa's free kick. And when Johan Roux took the quick one, he said, no, in fact, it's Romania's free kick. So we're a little confused up here too.
Well, you need to move very quickly with Johan Roux, because believe me, he's darn quick at taking those little tap kicks and belting downfield. Well, the defensive role for Romania continues. Although their line-out statistics have proved to be rather useful. Rousseau finds Kreno Otto with a big tap. Roux swamped there by Tufa. Richter with a pickup. South Africa don't have enough close-in support on the ball carrier, but they still come away with it. Christian Scholz seemingly was impeded as Brecci brings some sanity back to the defense of Romania.
Well, that wasn't a bad option from Henny Leroux. We've seen the Romanian three-quarter line come up very flat on South Africa, and the little holes do exist, possibly for those little grubbers, little chips. But as you said, I think he was impeded, Christian Scholz, in making an attempt to field that ball.
One or two big up and unders might be options for South Africa. Through comes Brinzer with it. He's a big, strong man, is the captain. Good support as well from Jalapu. And then Jalapu just stands off that maul. Can they make something of this? Flutur, and then Ivanciuc with a huge up and under. Johnson can't take, and then good play by Johan Roux. Counter-attack from South Africa. Was that a dangerous tackle on Christian Scholz? Very physical confrontation, this. Ivanciuc again. Little flip pass to him, and then on the outside, that's Solimier.
Well, that's the second time this afternoon we've seen Churashku caught out in the center position, and as a lock forward, he gets around the field very well, but in that situation, possibly not making the best of that opportunity.
South Africa more successful in the line out, and full credit to young Chris Rousseau, that man in picture. He's thrown in with accuracy, as he does again for Cobus Visser. Chris Rousseau is just warned by the referee to keep his mouth shut, although the ball has gone South Africa's way for the Romanians being offside in the line out. Well, this is James Small now taking the kick.
Gavin, not to be outdone, James Small proves that he too can kick the ball, as Campo has shown us. And David Campese is certainly a fine punter of the ball and has been compared to the best in the world.
We must remember that James Small started his rugby playing career at fullback, not for South Africa, but certainly at school. So kicking is not unfamiliar to him. Krano Otto does well this time to take for South Africa. Johan Roux with a kick downfield. That's a pinpoint kick from him. South Africa will really want to try and turn the Romanian team going back towards their own posts. And Johan Roux is one of the men that can exercise that option with some big kicking. Good placement, Tufa with the ball. Now that's the message there from Churashku and his captain Brinza. (21 points to 3), then South Africa lead with 11 minutes left in the second half.
That score, 21 points to 3, although it doesn't indicate some very high scoring from South Africa, it has shown us that the lineouts have been a suitable improvement over Thursday's match against Australia, and really the jumping of Krano Otto and Cobus Visser has been outstanding.
As the throwing in of Chris Rousseau. And South Africa are always going to be up against good line-out exponents today, so take nothing away from the opposition. Ivanciuc. His role has really been reduced to defensive kicking throughout this match. Not too many options, except early on in the first half, to really move the ball down the line. Those statistics are not great for South Africa, of course. Their over-eagerness to drive against the Romanians. Good regrouping from Romania now. Can Ivanciuc make something of this? Slip it down the line, then the pass on the inside to Brinza. There was great play there by Adrian Richter. And then they come away with it again to Romania. Solimier, that was a good kick from him, a good catch, and then a good kick. Well, the referee's now asking whether that's a 22 or 5 meters.
That was some excellent play from the little winger down the left-hand side. Let's see if we can just pick up what happens here. Yes, Gavin Johnson does in fact get a foot to it. And in my opinion, that may well have been a line-out half a meter from the line.
The action replay shows that, but Romania still have some options, except that they've lost the tight head. Well, they now have their chance from the line-out because James Small's reply was not with interest.
That was a rarity in the scrumming these days, as we saw, was it Chris Rousseau with a heel against the head there? And so often the scrum half is able to put the ball under the hooker's foot, thus ruling out that heel against the head opportunity.
Can Romania make something of this? 5 meters from the South African goal line. They'll need a clean catch to start with, but it comes Richter's way. And then away Romania come with it there. Can they get this out? Driving coming from Leonte. Ivanciuc, little chip kick from him. That's well taken there by Brendan Venter. He calls for the mark and gets it. Well, South Africa right inside their own 22, looking to try and take on Romania. The Romanians, I don't think, were 10 meters back.
Well, Brendan Venter does so well to hold on to this, and with all sorts of problems looming up in the shape of 3 Romanians.
What is the best option for South Africa? Roux decides it's to run. Well, was it the captain's decision? This is Chris. Good running there from Christian Stoltz, and then South Africa make an awful hash of it once again.
James Small picks on the biggest man on the field to have words with, and possibly South Africa will right now need to firm up a little bit on their game plan, try and get some really good runs out of the last few minutes.
Ivanciuc, Rashan. Well, that's really been the options that they've utilized, have the Romanians, of not really moving the ball down the back line. Rashan, with 35 caps, is a very experienced man, and they're comfortable, are Romania, with the fact that they've won a fair amount of line-out ball, particularly on their own throw-in, and that's what they want to do, is stay in the South African half of the field. South Africa's throw-in, South Africa's call. Once again, the short man line-out, but too many men in the line-out for Romania. James Small's punt downfield. Very useful exercise for South Africa to have more than 2 people able to kick to touch. No left-footer today in the form of Andre Joubert. Gavin Johnson at the back for South Africa has had a relatively quiet game. Ivanciuc running across the field, and then the pass on the inside there to Gontinak. There's enough ball coming the way of Romania. Can they make something of this? That was the kick there from Rashan. And once again, Johan Roux was the man coming across. He has a very important defensive role to play for South Africa, does Johan Roux.
Well, in saying that, it is worth complimenting Romania this afternoon. They've able to steal, wrestle, suitable possession from South Africa, and really the ball retention skills of the Springboks need to be questioned.
Brinzer with a pick up, and then support from Jalapu. Big and physical is the Romanian pack. South Africa's defense has been equal to the task. On the inside is Richter, and he has a chance for Romania. Can they get through? Yeah, this could well be a try to them. Yes, it is. Well, that's great reward for the men from the Balkans. They've come to Newlands today, and being able to cross the line of the Springboks was vital to their cause.
Well, it's that man Gurănescu who scores that vital try, and just look how well we've been saying all afternoon how the South Africans need to straighten up, and Breachy just shows how it's done. Super pick up there by the flanker. Well, there's joy and jubilation in the Romanian camp. They came here expecting to get a thrashing from a South African team after Thursday's match against Australia, and yet they've shown us that they really have a lot of guts and a lot of courage.
Well, there was a terrific cheer from the South African crowd, or largely South African crowd. Can Ivanciuc make something of this? Bring a respectable margin to the Romanian team. That's not going to go over. 21 points to 8. do South Africa lead? Just 3 minutes of ordinary playing time left. South Africa will also want to finish this game with a flourish. Can they bridge that Romanian line? Not with Gurănescu, and good catching that by the lock forward. Lots of aggression from the Romanian team. Once again, they get good possession from that ruck. Good kick that from Ivanciuc. Back foot is Peter Hendricks. Deciding to kick himself. Was that the right option? He had Gavin Johnson alongside him. Well taken by Brecci. He's looked a really good player as Brecci, and he was the man that really set up that last try. But here's Gavin Johnson. The massive punt downfield from Johnson. And a very kind bounce for him too.
That was a beautiful kick by Gavin Johnson. He almost ran right onto the far touchline, and with barely a meter of angle, that ball bouncing to perfection.
Well, Gurănescu and Gashikariu in the Romanian line-out have their work cut out. They have the throw in at this line-out. They desperately need this ball. It comes in the form of Gurănescu in the front of the line-out. Well, South Africa were offsides. The penalty going against Chris Rousseau.
In fact, I think it was Gary Pagel that was just ambling back to the front of that. We see Chris Rousseau, the man in picture.
Well, Ivanciuc just settling for the touchline.
Let's see if we can pick up here as we see this penalty awarded against South Africa. In fact, it is Gary Pagel who just